The vote passed on a Tuesday. I remember because I had marked the date in my field log 2 weeks before, when I first read the proposed reclassification language and understood what it actually said. Arbiter Sorvan called the roll at half past the second session hour. The Thessan Directorate's chamber was full. 43 member species represented in the curved tiers, their delegations ranked by tonnage class, by treaty seniority, by the weight of whatever leverage each had traded to sit in those seats. Earth's observer table was in the lower gallery, below the speaking floor, where non-members sat. That positioning had never been accidental. The measure before the chamber was Classification Amendment 7 Theta. In 31 words, it redefined any vessel below 12,000 standard displacement units, operating without a Directorate-recognized flag escort, as a sub-threshold craft. Unregistered, unprotected, ineligible for distress relay, port docking priority, or formal recognition at any Directorate facility. In 31 words, it erased Earth's entire deep space survey fleet from the official record. Earth operated 219 survey vessels. The largest displaced 9,000 units. Every one of them would wake up the following morning, technically invisible to Directorate space. Our lead attaché, a man named Holt, sat at the observer table with his hands flat on the surface and his eyes forward. He did not speak when Sorvan read the measure aloud. He did not speak when the vote tallied 38 in favor. He gathered his materials, stood, nodded once to the chamber clerk as a matter of courtesy, and walked out. I followed him into the corridor. I asked him what he intended to file with the Home Office. He said, "Tell them to keep flying." That was the entirety of Earth's official response. I put it in my report exactly as he said it. The Directorate expected, I think, a petition, a counterfiling, a diplomatic note protesting the amendment on tonnage discrimination grounds, something with language in it, something that could be argued over and deferred and eventually buried in committee. What they got was silence, and then the sound of 219 survey vessels continuing to operate in deep space, unescorted, unregistered, and entirely free. That last part was the piece Sorvan's legal staff had not thought through. A registered Directorate fleet vessel operated under the transit accords. It filed approach vectors. It requested corridor clearances. It observed the boundary protocols that kept it out of uncharted sectors pending formal survey certification. A process that ran, on average, 14 to 22 months per corridor submission. The Directorate's own rules were a lattice of procedural gates, each one designed to ensure that no member fleet moved faster than the Directorate's administrative apparatus could ratify. Earth's survey vessels were no longer registered. They were no longer bound by any of it. I filed a note in my own private log the week after the vote. They have just told 219 ships that they have nothing left to lose by going anywhere they want. I did not put that note in my official report. It seemed, at the time, like the kind of observation that was better kept quiet. The Thessan Corridor was the Directorate's prize. 7 years of survey certification filings, boundary protocols, commission reviews. Sorvan herself had shepherded the final ratification, and when it cleared the full chamber, she had described it as the most significant territorial opening in Directorate history. 600 light-years of previously uncharted transit lane, confirmed stable, confirmed navigable, opened exclusively to Directorate member fleets, as of the beginning of the current session year. Exclusively, the language read, to recognized, registered, flag-certified vessels. The Directorate dispatched its exploration vanguard, 31 vessels, all above 12,000 displacement units, all carrying the current corridor survey charts, into the Thessan Corridor, 8 weeks after ratification. It was a membership demonstration as much as an exploration mission, a signal to every species in those tiered seats that the Directorate's ability to open and hold new space was the central value proposition of belonging. The Vanguard went dark at week 3. Not catastrophically. No distress signal, no wreckage, no weapons signature. The corridor simply swallowed them into a region where the survey charts ran out, a branching sub-corridor system that had not been in the ratification files because it had not been in anyone's files. The Directorate's surveys had mapped the primary lane and called it complete. The branches had not been walked. I was in my station office when Sorvan's chief of staff appeared at the door. He was a Thessan, smooth carapaced. The amber rank clips on his secondary limbs indicating senior administrative standing. He was not a man who appeared at doors without announcement. He said they needed to speak with Earth's current observer. I said I was Earth's current observer. He said they needed to use Earth's survey registry. The emergency session convened within 6 hours. I sat in the observer gallery, the same low table, the same view of the tiers from below, and watched Sorvan call up the Directorate's navigational archive on the chamber's main display. The Thessan corridor primary lane filled the holographic surface in cyan and pale white. The sub-corridor branches were marked in red, unsurveyed, unknown depth, unknown hazard classification. Then her technical staff overlaid the second data set. It came from Earth's survey registry, 9 years of operational logs from vessels the Directorate had formally declared invisible. Every branch, every approach angle, every gravitational signature, atmospheric density reading, and navigable lane within the sub-corridor system. The record went back 7 years. Earth survey ships had been mapping the Thessan branches since 2 years before the Directorate had even begun its own ratification process. They had been mapping it because it was there, because it was unmapped, and because there was no longer any Directorate rule that said they couldn't. The chamber was quiet in a particular way, not the quiet of an empty room, the quiet of 43 delegations doing the same arithmetic simultaneously. Sorvan looked at the overlay for a long time. Her secondary limbs, which typically held a precise and neutral position during session, had gone still in a way that was different from their usual stillness. She said, "These surveys are 9 years current." Her technical lead confirmed it. She said, "The sub-corridor branches, all of them?" Confirmed. "And the registry holding these logs?" She paused. "Under what classification are these vessels currently recognized by this body?" The clerk read from the record. Sub-threshold, unregistered, non-member status, ineligible for Directorate recognition at any facility. A delegate from the Pelrath block, 3rd tier, tonnage heavy, one of the 38 who had voted for the amendment, said, quietly, to no one in particular, "Those aren't survey vessels. They have the only maps." The words landed in the chamber the way a stone lands in still water. I watched the circles move outward through the tiers. I watched delegates pull up their own terminal displays. I watched the Pelrath delegate replay his own words, visibly, by the way his expression shifted, as though he had said something aloud that he had not intended to say aloud. Sorvan looked down from the speaker's platform to the observer gallery, to the low table below the speaking floor, where non-members sat. She looked at me. I did not stand. I had not been granted speaking rights. I folded my hands on the table and waited. She said, "Does Earth's observer have a position to convey?" I said, "Our vessels are available to assist, pending restoration of recognized status." 7 words. Holt would have approved. The restoration vote was not 38-5. It was 43-0, unanimous, which is a word that requires all 43 member species to do something they do not naturally do in the same moment, which is agree. The clerk read the result twice, because the tally system flagged it as an error condition. It had apparently never recorded a unanimous vote on a classification measure before. I relayed the result to the Home Office in a brief transmission. I included the delegates' exact words, because they were on the record, and they were, in the dry way these things sometimes are, exactly right. Our vessels were not survey ships in the way the Directorate had meant the category. They were not small because they lacked ambition. They were small because the work required it, maneuverable, low profile, able to go where the big registered fleets could not follow without a committee's permission. The Directorate had looked at them and seen diminishment. They had seen 219 liabilities, clauses in an amendment, line items to be reclassified and made tidy. What they had actually done was remove every restriction on where those vessels could go. The Vanguard was recovered. All 31 ships, crew intact, navigated out of the sub-corridor branches inside 72 hours, using Earth's survey logs as a guide. Sorvan issued a formal statement of appreciation through the clerk's office. It was measured and correct, and said nothing that would embarrass anyone. I kept the delegate's words instead. That unguarded line, spoken to no one, confirmed to everyone. Those aren't survey vessels. They have the only maps. 9 years. 219 ships. Every branch, every lane, every gravitational signature. In the dark space the Directorate had been too certain to enter, and too slow to reach. They had called it sub-threshold. They had meant it as an erasure. We had called it Tuesday, and kept flying.